Hi, this is Allison Sheridan, and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. This week, I'm not going to spend a dime of your money. Instead, we're going to learn how to use something you already have, the Finder in macOS. Now, you might be a really sophisticated user who's been using the Mac for a long time, or you could be new to the Mac. But either way, I'm positive I'll show you a trick or two that you've never known the Mac's Finder could do for you. We're going to dig through all of the Finder preferences first, learning how to customize the Finder sidebar to show exactly what you care about. Then we'll customize the Finder toolbar, not just with the standard options available, but with items of your choosing. Finally, we'll dig into the Finder view menu, where we'll walk through how to make your Finder windows and icon, list, column, and even cover flow look exactly the way you like them.